And
And
welcome to This Week in Worcester Podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I am here with my partner in Gab, Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is executive producer of Banijay Media and president of Hollywood. Why do I always forget it? Hollywood Film Group,
that's right. It's
doing
right.
great things in the local film industry. Great things.
Trying. Although maybe I'll get canceled tonight. I don't know. I haven't decided
So I heard there was a thing on Tuesday that a lot of
yet.
people were talking about.
um,
I don't really know what it was all about. Didn't seem like it went well though for some people.
are you are you talking about the election, Tom? Is
Oh,
that
there's
what
an
you're talking
election?
about? There
We
was
might
an
be talking
election.
about that.
Yeah, there was it was actually like a big fancy one too.
I don't know how fancy it was. Um, so I figure we'll start with the national stuff, the absolute and well-deserved destruction of the Democratic Party. Uh, and we are re-entering a Trump world, which will have uh, many devastating consequences. But you know what? You know how much I blame Trump voters for voting for Trump? 0%. 0.0. In the great words of what the hell was the professor's name in that movie? Animal Farm. I forget. When he was talking to Blutowski. 0.0. And we can get into that a little bit. We'll talk about further bloodletting of Democrats in the Senate. The House is going to be close, but might be a Republican majority, and not a ton of action. Nothing really changed so much within elections that within Worcester, but some changes on the state level from outside here as well. So why don't you give your debrief while I step away here for a moment? But I will listen to every word. I have a
Copy.
disturbance I need to deal with.
Nice. Let's do it. Deal with that disturbance. All right, everybody. So here is my general election analysis. Right. So I would say that uh, Trump won for a lot of reasons. And I know that locally, we tend to be more progressive here in Massachusetts and maybe a little bit more progressive here in Worcester County, and then maybe even more narrowly progressive here in Worcester. And in particular, that progressive is seemingly associated with just Democrats. So you have to be a progressive Democrat here in Massachusetts, really, to get elected. Although some people who call themselves progressive Democrats probably aren't, right? They do like certain things, you know. So um, for example, they'll go to the local Pride rally and they'll be seen taking pictures with people, but then they'll deny like folks that came to speak the right to speak. So I mean, you have that kind of balance here in our city. So, and then I generally reject the labels like progressive, liberal, conservative, because I don't believe in the duality of politics, that there's only two sides and you can only choose one or two. Um, so, I think that over the last pretty much 10 years now, right, since Mr. Trump came down the elevator, we have heard about, anybody who supports him is like the worst person on earth. And um, So for me, I don't know that that's true, right? I think that there are some people that do. And on Facebook this week in particular, all I have been seeing is people who have revealed who they really are, right? So like they go on Facebook and they repost some of this stupid stuff, and they're attacking people, right? Like there's that guy who posted the your body, my choice. That dude just deserves to be smashed. And I guarantee that guy, if confronted in person, would go into a corner and cry like a little baby, because that's exactly what that dude is. And of course, he ended up getting doxxed on X, right, on Twitter. his address and his phone number and everything about him. And to be honest with you, I feel like in this day and age, you're kind of asking for it when you do stuff like that. Um, there's that group of people, and for sure, those people for the most part voted for Trump. That group of people, but that group of people is not the majority of his voters. They are not. The vast majority of his voters are working class people that are not making $100,000 a year. These are regular folks. They make up the vast majority of our nation. The numbers are, you know, I mean, we can't even imagine. But over the last, 30, 40 years, the gap between people who make a lot of money or are able to move economically has widened and widened and widened and widened further and further. And the Democratic Party has had much to do with those policies. And they've cooperated in a lot of ways with what the Republicans have wanted to do. And Trump somehow connected with those folks. He really truly did. Now, yes, were there dog whistles and racist stuff? Absolutely. He said nonsense after nonsense, and he did it on purpose. And he appealed to people. But if you look into the deeper numbers, so we're talking about specific groups of people where he won and he flipped states. He had a huge most African Americans in 48 years for a Republican president, the most Hispanics ever, um, and the highest percentage of Latino and Hispanic men, the highest percentage of African American men, the highest percentage ever of voters under 30 for Republican presidential candidates. Not unbelievable. And this is just some of the numbers, right? And but the victory was wide and it was deep and it hit all kinds of things. He flipped and changed the traditional Democratic coalition, union workers and minority groups. He flipped that completely on its head. Um, and I know it's hard to take, but he did it, right? So like the results are the results. Um, and I don't want to do the renegotiation of the 2020 election that some people are doing. Like I don't know if you've seen this, Tom, but there's a bunch of people who are like, oh, well, there was 15 million less votes, so therefore that proves that that there was election interference in the last election. And no, I think it's really likely that millions of people stayed home because they didn't want to participate in this. I think that is very likely. I don't
Well,
know
that's
if it
obviously happened. I
right.
mean, unless you're going to be a conspiracy theorist and oh, there was too many voters last time. I've
Yeah.
seen it, and now I'm seeing it come from the left, and it's really irritating me. I mean, I know no actual like figures in like in politics, but
Yeah.
I mean, Twitter is and granted, Twitter's a cesspool, but uh, uh,
It really is.
there's people. It really is horrific, but there's people on the left even saying, oh, well, who votes for, a Democratic senator? Because this happened in Arizona and a bunch of places. Who votes for a Democratic senator and Republican president? And the answer is lots of people.
Yeah. I think that there was some attempt by people to split the ticket in various places. And they were trying to do a hedge. I think there was so many, but the problem in that situation is that when you have turnout for one group higher than the other, and the enthusiasm on one side was definitely higher than the other. So there's way more enthusiasm with Republicans than there was with Democrats.
Oh,
But Tom,
yeah.
I kind of think it came down to one moment. As crazy as it sounds, because some of the moments that um, Trump had were insane, like the rally at Madison Square Garden, and just like a series of different things. But when Vice President Harris went on The View and was asked by Sonny Hostin if there was any policy that she would change under Biden's administration, her answer was, "There's nothing I can think of," and I think that was a critical error. I really do, because then after that, I heard it everywhere, including here in Massachusetts, on the radio. I saw it on TV. I saw it on the internet. Um, Obviously, I watch and listen to that stuff because Tom and I do this, but also for Manny's sake, I have to prepare, make sure that I'm watching and reading the things that are happening. But they spent millions of dollars promoting that clip from The View, and it was just tone deaf. How, of course, there's got to be some policy in the last 4 years that
Well,
they've
I mean,
screwed up
you know,
on.
when you're sitting vice president, it's tough to you know, it's a tough spot. I don't think any of that matters. I really don't.
10 days before the election where you're running for president. And at this point, I don't, there's no more feelings for the current president. Like who cares about his feelings or his opinions? You're running for president and it's only 10 days out. You say what you got to say. You say which policies you want to talk about, and and you dive into those particular things. The other thing I think that people probably are saying, and I see it more and more, not just among the crazy people on the right, which there are some amazing
Absolute moonbats. Yeah.
local people here in Worcester, but the celebrity stuff, the diving in on those election night concerts, and just the constant stream of celebrity endorsements. I really think that has been something that people don't realize how much it aggravates regular people. I don't care what Oprah thinks. I just don't. I don't. If she wants to give me a car, I'll take the car. But I don't really care at this point her opinion. It doesn't really matter to me. And I would say the same again. I don't care about Bill Burr's opinion. I don't care about Joe Rogan's opinion. I don't care about any of those people. Though none of those people mean anything to me, because they're all just talking heads, right? Just like you and I are doing right now.
But I don't think that affects people either way. I don't think like anybody's. I don't think anybody's voting against somebody that gets an endorsement. I mean, this. I mean, if you'd like, folks, I did another video on this. I just decided to turn my camera on during the week. I cheated on John with myself.
It was nice though.
This is really simple to me. This was not an endorsement of Trump. This is a repudiation of Democrats.
Yes, it was a vote against.
And less so repudiation of Democrats. It was more, what did she represent? I mean, you know, joy. Well, you know what? People, especially in the Midwest where she got trounced, don't have joy because they've had a noose around their neck. You know, the young generation their whole life, and their parents most of their working life. That's getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
And, you know, the history here is very simple. Ronald Reagan said, the only way to be a good patriot is accept the scraps that the rich people throw on the floor for the rest of you paupers. You know, the scraps that, quote, trickle down. And that's the only way to be a patriot is if you accept the scraps that us real people give you. And then he won 2 elections, and then George W. won an election, and then Clinton won basically because of Ross Perot.
Yeah.
And not entirely, but you know, certainly didn't hurt him.
Yeah.
And at that point, Democrats decided we need to be more like Republicans. And so what we have is 2 corporate parties that represent corporate power, and no one that represents workers. And I don't care how many picket lines Joe Biden stood on. 11% of Americans are in unions. Unions are fantastic, and that's great that he does support organized labor. But he supports organized labor. I mean, Democrats in general support organized labor because it's a voting bloc. It's a concentrated 11% of working people in America. It's not because they actually believe in labor or think that like working people should get a fair shake at anything. Because if it had, they would have done anything or had any policy that had anything to do with stopping the explosion of the wealth gap, which continues to grow because all money starts at the top of the economy, not like it used to 50 years ago. For the 35 years after the Second World War, money all started at the bottom. Now it all starts at the top, and money dies at the top because those people don't spend but a small portion of the money that they earn, and the rest is invested often in low yield, safe investments, and then they use some to identify opportunity, right?
Right.
When you have a whole crap load of money, like billions of dollars or $1 billion even, all you need to do is outpace inflation. That's all you really. That is your strategy. It's wealth sustaining wealth, not increasing it. Yes, you increase it if you identify opportunity, but overall, the kind of view of your portfolio is 3% in normal inflation times. So, these people don't spend most of their money, and this idea that like the Arthur Laffers of the world, they came up with this cockamamie theory that if rich people only had more money, that they would spend it. Like the excess of capital is the reason to create stuff, not because you see opportunity. Just because you have extra money, you're just going to start building stuff and hiring people to do it. That's nonsense. It's stupid. It was never true. It was all a lie. But Democrats in their yield to, we just want to win and we don't actually stand for anything anymore. decide to be more like Republicans. This
Yep.
this narrative from the right that like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are socialists is so hysterical. It's like beyond counterfactual. They
No,
are socialists. They are die-in-the-wool neoliberals, which Republicans are too. It's the same political theory of neoliberalism, is what it's called. Started with Reagan. It infects both parties, and it basically, it is a lot more complicated, obviously, but it basically says corporate power should rule the world. So what you have is, especially people in the Midwest, they had a choice between more establishment, the Democratic nominee, or however they view Trump, whether it be some mix of chaos, he's just something different, or as I said in my other video, he represents burning the thing down that's been choking them to death for 50 years. And they chose anything but more of the same.
Yeah, and I will think that I think more than people realize. First of all, I think that they also take the position generally that voters are stupid. And I mean here in Worcester, we've watched that take place where we see city officials talking to local people like they're stupid, right? We know better than you. Shut up and do what we tell you is kind of the tone that comes, and it happened a couple times. But in particular, one thing that stood out to me was at the Democratic National Convention when Vice President Harris refused, someone from the Palestinian groups to come up on stage. That was one. Two, her representative of the union was the baseball union guy, which to me is just one of the biggest jokes of all time. And then the SEIU, which is like local people who work in hotels and like service unions, they weren't allowed on the stage. Now, people don't all notice that all the time, but I think that it trickled down into this kind of like we know better than you attitude, and then this kind of like cozying up to these other versions of corporate stuff. We've watched the Republicans do it for a long time. The Democrats have just picked a different group of corporate titans to go with, but like the baseball union head is not someone who's struggling like a guy who's a trucker. It's just not the same. And so, there's no real connection there, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And so you really think about like who was in charge and what was doing it. And then I watched this. I read a bunch of articles, various sites all over the spectrum, and you keep hearing this word operative, political operative, operative. These advisors, these advice givers, these
It's the
pollsters,
consultant class, yeah.
right, the consultants of the world, and that group of people. Well,
Don't get it.
No, but David Plouffe, for example, great particular guy, worked for Mike Dukakis, back in 1988. Worked
That
for
loser.
Right, worked for Clinton, worked for Al Gore, worked for Obama, worked for Hillary, worked for Joe Biden, and then worked for Kamala. It's the same guy. He's been in the Democratic political operation for years. He's the guy who calls like district chiefs, and he sets up the poll, the signs and all the same stuff, and it's the same thing. And I mean, those things people are tired of. They want something new. They want something different. And some of the things that we hear in Massachusetts, right? So when we turn on Massachusetts Facebook or Massachusetts whatever, you will hear all the stuff that Trump said that's racist or misogynist or whatever. All those things, you'll hear that here, but they're not hearing that there. That's not what they're getting. That's not the message that's getting through to them. In fact, I would say that it's edited heavily, right? To be this appeal to what I thought Tom used the right word. It's chaos. He's appealing to this idea that I can go in and it's broken and I'll fix it. And the only person who can do it is me because I'm uniquely situated to do it in this particular
I'm
way.
an outsider and all this nonsense, right?
Yeah. Which is hilarious because, I mean, he's a classic Democrat, New York Democrat, for years and years and years, was registered as a Democrat. We talked about it last week until 2015, and then he changed, and then went to the Republican Party. Some of his kids were registered Democrats for years and years and years.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest about the guy. He doesn't have core values. Values is not something that he has.
He doesn't care about values. He just cares about winning. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, look, look, you don't play to lose, right? So I mean, I get that part, but just I mean, his need to just say whatever he thinks will play well at every second is kind of obvious to me. But nonetheless, again, there's all this talk about what people voted for, or now it's like people on Twitter left are all basically, I just abandoned all my principles because screw these people that voted for him. Like, you're a moron, just a moron. After I just talked about a second ago about people that call, Biden and Harris commies and socialists or whatever are lunatics and don't understand what those words mean. We have somebody putting commies in the chat. I'm just saying.
That's chicken.
Like, way to, like, if you want to hear me yell today, you're on the right track.
Yeah, no, Colleen is trolling you because that's what she does. Well, no, I'm with that. I think that there are. I just think that there's this refusal to self-evaluate in general, right? So even just so you know, even with the Republicans, hey, what's up, Colbs? Even with the Republicans, right? They are taking this like stand that they did this and they did that and they did this and they did that. And they didn't do anything at all.
Look, it's been a long time ago. The Republican Party, at least at the national level, right? Local and national is different, right? But at the national level, the Republicans stopped pretending long ago that they weren't the party of Wall Street.
Yeah. I mean,
they don't care.
They don't. And somehow he manages to get union folks to vote for him, which is very interesting. But it's a mix of things. Some of that's culture stuff, and some some of that's there's a portion in there that are some of the worst people humanly possible. That doesn't. Sure. He's got 74 million votes at this point. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, he won the popular vote, which is just that's a big argument.
Might actually catch him, or she's going to be pretty close, I think, by the time it's all counted.
I mean, the big California batches came in yesterday and got her over 70, but.
She's at 71 too right now, 71 and change.
Yeah. I don't think there's 3-4 million more votes to be found, but now, hey, you never know.
No, I mean, it's either way, it's not as wide of a gap as it was on Tuesday, naturally, because I mean, there's all these absentee votes and mail-ins or whatever. But I mean, it was electoral college wise, it was a rout.
Yeah.
And I don't think people view Republicans any better than they do Democrats. It's him, and at least he's different.
Well, I actually think it's interesting. So here locally, John Deaton, who ran against Elizabeth Warren, I think that he kind of summed up how most people feel. By the way, he cracked 40%, which is mind-boggling to me that he got that high. But he turned to her and he said, "You all suck." And he wasn't talking about just the Democrats. He was talking about Congress in general. And I do think most people feel like that. We look at them and we say, you all suck, I mean, you came here on Manny's election eve special, and our leadoff guest that night was Robin Kennedy, and she was talking about ballot question 1, which, by the way, romped here in Massachusetts, right? So the giving the state auditor the right to audit the legislature, which is going to have a court fight, so it's not going to happen anytime soon.
It's not going to happen at all.
The vast majority of people voted for that, basically to tell the legislature here in Massachusetts, knock it off. Like, stop, like, knock it off. But they didn't just do that. The Republican Party here in Massachusetts, both in the House and in the Senate, I mean, the Senate's, it's easy to double up in the Senate, right? So they went from 2 to 4. So that's really not that much. But they have more than 20 reps now in the Republic. They have a caucus all of a sudden, which they didn't have for years and years and years. A group of people that can meet together, vote together, be a voting bloc, swing some things. It's gonna change a little bit of the flavor of Massachusetts. It still has a super majority in both houses, but for the Democrats. But the fact that there's inroads at the state level in Massachusetts should tell you what people are thinking and feeling, right? It's not just because all the old racists came out to vote. The independent culture of Massachusetts, which has elected many Republican governors, has started to trickle down the ballot, and people need to pay attention to that. Because I don't know that, as Tom said, I don't know that the Republicans think that like we would want them to, which is that, hey, we need to go in and fix government and make it more efficient and better for the people. They are just trying to get into power to then exact revenge, which is exactly what you've heard the litany of people going on the news over the past week talk about. I mean, Lindsey Graham, who is supposed to would probably be the head of the Judiciary Committee again, was talking about going back and impeaching judge upon judge upon judge upon judge that he didn't like during the process where the Democrats had control of the Senate. I don't know how this is going to happen. Rick Scott might be the Senate leader. Oh my goodness. I don't know. That's just I can't imagine. But if he does, I mean, having Rick Scott, I mean, you've heard some of the things that this guy has said that are just like mind-boggling. Where he's talked about arresting whole police departments, like sending in federal troops to play. Just some of the stuff that you've heard is just like, and it's not a joke. I know that some people think they're just kidding around. When you're a senator at that level and you make a statement like that, and you're okay with things that are being tossed around, that makes people really believe that it could happen. And now, January, what's the inauguration date? The 20th or the 21st? Like January 21st. There's a lot of people in our country that are like dreading that day, thinking that maybe there really is something to some of this stuff. Maybe there are going to be mass arrests and deportations. I think that that's nonsense. I think that he was intentionally trying to do that to keep the base energized. I don't believe that he really did. And he's already walked it back, by the way. If you noticed, he started to walk it back this week because it was never intended to do that. It was only intended to get people to vote for him, not necessarily that he was going to implement that plan. Plus, the plan that he talked about is impossible. It's impossible to do it. You cannot overnight, make concentration camps all over the country. You just can't do it. There's no way. And so,
how are you going to track down 30 million people?
You can't.
And what do you think that's going to cost?
Zillions, infinite money.
Infinite money
that we don't have, right? By the way, because we're broke. We're broke as a nation. We're in massive debt, and both parties have contributed to the massive debt. Neither of them can say, "Oh, the other one. It was the other one." none of them can say that because they do.
I think Trump will end up ahead of Biden, actually.
What with debt contributions? For sure. I mean, because remember both of the but both of the big COVID bills were signed by Trump. People forget that. I love how people were like, that's that's the thing, is like the way that they frame things is as if things didn't happen the way that we know it, because they think we're stupid. They really truly do. They think we're all dumb and that we don't have any ability to analyze things for ourselves. And so what's the legal definition of migrant? I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with anything. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not, a migrant is someone who migrates from one place to the next. That's the legal definition of migrant.
So I mean, the bottom line here is, Democrats trying to be more like Republicans. I mean, what are you saying to your base when you're on tour with a Cheney? Like,
I mean,
respect to Liz Cheney for sticking to her values and fighting against the Trump monster as much as she has. But other than that, there's nothing I agree with this woman on.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, Liz Cheney was
a psycho.
She was presented as a hero. They're illegal aliens. Okay, well, I mean, I guess they should go back to Zorbotron 5, because aliens, in my mind, come from planets. Right? I mean, I understand the definition. I understand. Colby, you're arguing with Tom and I, and you probably would need to argue with other folks. We do think that the border needs to be fixed. There's not that issue of here. What we're saying is that the plan to round up 30 million people and deport them all back at the same time is not just unfeasible, it's impossible. It is impossible. First of all, there's not enough staff. There's not enough police officers. And if you think about it, let's say we did round up 30 million people, that would take the entirety of FEMA, the entirety of the National Guard. It would take every single
police. Who's going to do it?
And then there's going to be people that refuse to participate, That's a fact. There's going to be people who refuse to participate, and we don't have enough staff to do it, guys. So it's just he literally gave a dog whistle to you, and you're buying it. You
Oh, and
actually,
by the way, it will absolutely obliterate the economy.
yeah, the economy
Absolutely
overnight
obliterate the economy.
it would be wrecked. But just let's say, for example, let's say just the folks in Texas, if they were to take the entire National Guard in Texas and all the police departments, which Rick Perry would love down there, right? And go around and sweep the state of Texas. Overnight, there will be massive crime waves because guess what? There'll be no police officers in Houston because they're going to have to take every single person and go put them on this other task. It's nonsensical to believe that this is an actual actionable policy.
And in fact,
yeah,
those who are undocumented in the country, quote, illegal immigrants, commit crimes at a lower rate than native-born citizens, and that only makes sense because they have a whole bunch more to lose.
right. Plus, the another thing, the use of the word illegal. Okay, so it's illegal based on current law. However, you don't know what the law was when someone came from another country. So under President Reagan, for example, great Republican, right? There was not just any amnesty, Tom. That people forget about this. It was a 4-year amnesty, and at the time, every single person that was in the country at the time was given general amnesty, and then it lasted for a period of time. People had to go apply, and they received the amnesty. That is a huge amount of people. There's been estimates by Dick Cheney, by the way, who was on one of the committees that was evaluating this number. That number was like 25 to 30 million people back in the 1980s. Okay, so in the current analysis, so that was the president of the United States, Republican president of the United States. He gave a general amnesty. He has the authority. The Supreme Court, both Republican and Democrat, have affirmed that the president has the power to enact that thing. However,
they passed the bill. They passed the bill.
They did. It was voted on by a unified Democratic Congress led by Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill, back in the day, Massachusetts, hero or whatever. So this was a bipartisan bill that passed and has lasted. So some of the stuff that what's his name? Steve, who's the guy? Miller? That's one of Trump's guys. Steve Miller.
Stephen Miller. Yeah, basically, he's like a comic book villain.
Yeah, so him
a really racist comic book villain. He's very racist.
And he said that they're going to go back in time. The number that when they present the number 30 million illegals, Stephen Miller, the logic for it is that he's going to go back in time till the 1980s and figure out everybody who came in under the amnesty program. Which, by the way, just think about it for a second. Anybody who really believes that this is possible, think about what they're saying. A law that was passed by Congress and signed by President Reagan in 1986 is going to be taken, swept. You're going to go back and get all those folks too? Just think about what you're saying. Some of those people are not alive. It's stupid. The numbers are just made up. They're telling you something to get you to think that they actually care about the real issue, which is the economy. And this kind of idea that the folks that are coming from other places are taking your jobs, this nonsensical thought process. It's so foolish and ridiculous for you to believe that. That's not what took your jobs. What took jobs is the corporate overlords and their goal to eliminate humans. They don't want you. They don't care about you, and they'll do anything to become more and more efficient. That's why, automation, robots, AI. They want to eliminate your work. So those jobs for the middle class and the poor are the ones that are being eliminated. And frankly, no offense, the polls say it clear. It's clear as the day. Clear as day. And it's been universal for almost 40 years now. The folks that are saying they took our jobs, you don't actually want to do those jobs.
Yep.
You don't. You don't want to go to the cranberry bogs down in Carver, right? And you pick cranberries. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. You are a liar, and I'll say it right to your face. You don't want to go work.
That. In the words of the great Ralphie may he rest in peace. If white people picked your fruit and vegetables, your salad will be $27.
it's just it is a part of this kind of globalization movement. There's definitely some sense in that, but realistically, it's a value question. In all of the governments in the world, pretty much universally, except for maybe like three, right? But generally speaking, almost every government in the world doesn't care about you. They don't. And they don't care about you, and they make value choices, not individual personal choices. So when you see like President whoever bring someone to the State of the Union and say, this person did this, right? That is a tool designed to pull at your heartstrings to make you think that they care about you because your circumstances are similar to that person. But they don't care about you.
We're in a rabbit hole here. We're in a rabbit hole here. Because I want to do some stuff on the local stuff as well, so we don't we don't get ridiculed. We're gonna get ridiculed anyway. But
I don't care what people think.
So I mean, in the end of the day, and understand what at least working class is. That is people who earn money from work, right? People who you earn the most of their money from work. If you're a business owner, you work in that business. You're participating. You're not just an investor. You're getting you're getting income through sales, not through capital gains, right?
It's active work, not passive work, right? Active.
No. There's work. There's income from work, and there's income from investments. That's it. That's the two types of income we have.
And I can tell you that I am in the working class, even though I own a business. But my business doesn't make enough money for me to just go on vacation 40 weeks a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, these people, investors are great. They're, people that throw money at stuff to make things happen are great. Sure, I guess they contribute something. It's not work though, right? And so the Republicans long ago staked their claim to we are the party of people to investors, and Democrats just refuse to pick a side in the fight and think that they're going to be big tent. You know what big tent is? You have no values. Everybody's welcome.
Right, and we saw what happened. But there was also some very specific targeted voting blocks that were trying to send a message to the Democratic leadership. For example, in Dearborn, Michigan, where the Muslim community overwhelmingly voted for the Republican Party or the Independent Party, right? Intentionally and willfully. And you go look at the polls, and the answers to the question, if you go look at the local news there in Dearborn, they went on the news and they said, we intentionally voted for Donald Trump to send a message that the stuff that's happening in Palestine is not okay with us. And it was consistent. And that was a huge, huge voting block in that area because there's a lot of folks from that community that exist in that area that live there. And so now that's a specific issue, right? We're talking about numbers that have never happened for the Republican Party ever in those communities, and that is a repudiation of some of the things that you've done. You've big tented it, and your tent apparently the results. You got to go with the numbers. You got to go with the scoreboard, right? The numbers say that specific way of approaching things, that hey, we're going to deal with this in a general way, in a more general way, isn't enough. And Trump, as much as you want to hate the guy, he says that he is going to end conflicts. Now I don't know that I don't know. And Manny actually had a great point. He said to me the other day, he better do it.
He better do conflict. Yeah, he's going to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by allowing the annexation of the West Bank and the utter destruction of the Palestinian people. Genocide. But anyway,
he contributed to the current conflicts that are going on. However you want to say it, like, and by the way, there is no president in the past 50 years that has no blood on their hands, right? When it comes to this kind of stuff, every president, because like Tom says, they're both in the same thing. They all love the war. They love the never-ending war cycle, and I have the receipts because there's one bill, one law that has been passed every year since 1959. Just one, the same one, and it's the same one every single time, and that is the defense. The NOAA, the National blah 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 Defense Act that gets NDAA. I'm sorry, National Defense Act, that is a budget that exists outside the general budget for the country. This is just the military budget, and it passes every year, no matter what's going on.
And no, Colby. Investing and trading is not work. That's why they get their own special line on the tax form, so they can pay a less rate. That's not income from work is taxed higher than income from not working, from capital gains. That's why it's got a whole separate line for a whole separate tax bracket.
So I mean,
that is much less, as half as much as what you pay if you, assuming you work for a living.
Right, and by the way, so I mean, to dive into that, what people don't realize is that when they see whatever the high number is for capital gains tax, they don't care about when if you go look at a 1040 and look at all the things that you're being taxed on as a regular employee, the numbers end up working out to be much higher. People don't realize that because capital gains are taxed in a completely separate system. As Tom said, it's a separate system that exists outside of the income tax. It was voted on, passed in a different thing.
So if you gamble with the economy every day, you are less taxed than people who actually produce something.
Yeah. And you're allowed to write off more things too. So you're allowed to expense things in a different way. For example, when you have a home office and you happen to be like a plumber and you do a home office, you can get 40% of those expenses. That's Massachusetts rate, 40% this year. I only know this because I have to think about these things for Manny, Leanne, and I, right? And then, but if you have a home office and you're a day trader, you get to claim 100% of it. Why is that different? What's the difference between the two? Why does the day trader get to claim all of his expenses, and the plumber who works out of his home only gets to claim 40%?
And the answer is very simple: lobbyists.
Yeah,
and there are no lobbyists for Democrats are supposed to be those lobbyists, but they've surrendered to. And I love all the people that delivered this for Democrats, delivered this historic and total butt kicking. Pelosi, the people at the DNC, like the chair of the DNC, none of those people have resigned. We're gonna have the same speaker, the same majority leader in the House and the Senate. Same people. Nobody's gonna accept it. And Pelosi went on some stupid interview and said, I don't think that this is a rejection of Democrats. What is it then?
I mean, that's what I'm saying, is at the national level, they don't think about what they just saw. They don't even really truly review it. They try to put it into this other bucket that it's everybody's bad and everybody's thinking no. Not everybody thinks like that. And Nancy Pelosi's proven the point. She thinks it's not a rejection of Democrats, except for flipped 7-7, all the battleground states. All he is clean sweep. It's a clean sweep, folks. Like,
yeah, it's but it's in the great words of George Carlin, it's never going to change.
They don't
Be happy
care
with what you got. You're never getting anything more.
Well, so that I disagree with, right? I understand. I love George Carlin, but he's hilarious, and I think he was one of the most honest comedians that we've ever had. However, I do think that there's a path towards change that could take place, but it involves hard look at yourself, right? So when you're saying, I go to some of these meetings and you hear people railing against capitalism while they have an iPhone, right? And so now what most people say around me is like, well, you can never make a good choice in capitalist and what do they use this term now? End stage capitalism, right?
Okay, capital gains. The capital gain. There's no separate capital gains rate. You're right. Can we stop now? You're annoying me.
Right. Okay. But anyways, right. Well, it doesn't matter. It's just when you believe, it's confirmation bias, right? So you just want to believe what you want to believe, and there's nothing that we're going to say. It doesn't matter how much it is. It gets proven one way or the other. You're always going to do the same thing. But in the end, it does come down to economics. It really does come down to economics, and people do vote based on it. I had this other thought about me. How come Bill Clinton skates? Like openly skates in the national Democrats, local Democrats. He's still beloved. Dude's still campaigning for candidates. How come he skates? And I'll tell you why. Because people remember when he was president and they think the gas prices were low. I swear that's the only reason why. They think the gas prices were low and they somehow correlate the gas prices with a good economy, even though there were huge problems during that economy that people didn't realize. The dot-com boom, the origination of the housing bubble, the beginning of the banking crisis. It all started under Clinton, and people forget that because it didn't happen when he was president, right? Those things happened after he was president, and so we blame George W. Bush because somehow we actually do believe that the president affects our economy directly, which he doesn't, right? There's very few things that the president or any president can do to directly affect our economy. There's things that they say. And that's the thing about Trump is that Trump says stuff and the market responds to him, right? So that is true. They definitely do. Like Bitcoin has gone crazy. If you notice, Bitcoin is on an absolute epic all-time run right now because Trump said that he's going to be the first Bitcoin president. He's going to create a digital currency. He's going to link it to Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is exploding right now because of that particular thing. But if you listen to Vice President Harris, she said the same thing. So it didn't matter who won. It didn't matter who won. Oh, so Colby is an investor. Well, I mean, and a trader. Oh, anyways, this is a conversation that working is different than trading. It is there's a different thing, and you know what we're doing. You're just parsing words, and so at this point, it's an argument just to argue. You're just trolling us, so it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So I do want to dive into some of the local stuff, and the cracks in the local Democratic and statewide Democratic coalition. Something I've been warning about for some years now. That there's a lot of people out there, and every time I drove, oh, we're gonna do this. Oh my goodness, I don't even want to be here now. I want to just leave. I just want to leave.
No difference. There's no difference. Anyways, moving on.
Just the point. It is. Oh my goodness. I want to stick to that point that there could be change. There can be change. I think that here in Worcester, you've seen over the past couple of years that there's been a consistent coalition that's been developing that's offered an alternative platform. Now, I would say this, and this is going to be hard for local folks to say this. You're going to have to expand the things that you're going to allow in if you want to have an actual workable coalition. You do, right? So when we talk, Tom and I have talked a lot about charter change. Charter change is probably going to need some compromise positions, right? You can't get everything you want, right? So maybe there's 100 things you want in charter change, and you're not going to get all of them, right? You're going to end up with only some of them, but the whole point is to get charter change, which would change the government in Worcester, and then hope that that new structure will allow for a more direct governance by the people of the city of Worcester. But you can't predict, by the way, what's going to happen 15 years from now, right? So 15 years from now, there might be a completely different electorate here in the city of Worcester, and they might use charter change to elect a crazy mayor. I don't know. Maybe it'll be Tom. Maybe it'll be somebody else. I don't know. No, but what I'm saying is that you can't totally know what's going to happen in the future. It's just that if you have a system like we have here in the city of Worcester, that the vast majority, by the way, even the folks that vote for the current system say that they don't like the system. So the vast majority of people on both sides here in the city of Worcester don't like how things are going. And since they don't like it, a change probably would be for the best, right? You would want something to change. What I'm worried about is that this election will allow folks to feel empowered that are just rancid, hate spewing people like that they're going to be like, oh well, this shows that I can get away with some stuff, and I really hope that doesn't happen. And
yeah,
again,
I think that'll mostly fade out. I mean, we saw this last time too.
But I'm gonna say this, like I want to, the guy who runs Red Metro is watching right now. And I'll tell you this, Jay, anytime. I've said this many times. First of all, you don't live in Worcester, right? So that's one thing. Second, you will never say anything to anybody's face. So at this point, you're just a big coward, and I have no problem with attaching my name to that. And you do things on purpose to get people riled up, and the fact that anybody listens to you is an indictment on them. It really, truly is. really, truly.
And it's not because you're Republicans, because you're a bad person.
No, yeah, it has. I don't. So here's the thing: is it's funny because it's almost because I surround myself with different people who think differently, right? I do. I spend time with you. I spend time with Manny, and you will, Manny and you will both say, I am not a progressive liberal at all in any way, shape, or form. But I will say to folks that call themselves conservatives that you're a bunch of cowards because all you do is talk smack. You don't have any policy. You don't have anything that you want to do other than say they took our jobs, illegal aliens, blah, 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 blah. You say the same thing and it doesn't do anything. You don't help anybody. And then I get really offended because as a man of faith, I really, really struggle with people who say that they're Christians who also talk about arresting, killing, murdering, destroying, blah, 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 blah. None of those things are reflected in the none of those things are reflected in scripture at all. And so yet they want it to be, and they want to use it as an excuse to attack and go after people, and it just drives me crazy. I don't care about the left or the right. What I care about is people, and I want people to start caring about each other, and they just don't. And you sit on and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the websites are the worst thing that's ever happened to us, because at least back in the day, if I saw you on the street, maybe I could punch you in your face, but I can't do that anymore, right? I can't, because you're just, all I could do is argue with you on Messenger and then screenshot your whatever it is that you say and post it on Facebook, and I'll get 100 likes because it'll be like, yeah, John fought back on Facebook. That doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't mean anything to have those arguments. It's literally vapid and useless. So the only thing I do have, though, is relationships. I can build relationships with people individually, one at a time, and you can make a coalition of the like-minded. By the way, being like-minded doesn't mean you have to agree on everything policy-wise. It just means that you have to agree on principle. And on principle, I think that I've started to find a coalition of like-minded people. I care about others. Tom cares about others. Manny cares about others. The 5 people that were on the election evening special all care about other people. And that's who I want to be around. I don't care about anything else, and I don't even want to deal with the minutia of the little arguments because they're useless. They don't mean anything because they're all the same. By the way, the immigration issue and stuff with people coming across the border has existed for 50 years, and they just punt it back and forth between the two parties. They don't care. They're not trying to fix it because it's a wedge election issue, so they use it to do that, and you keep buying it. So it is what it is, right?
Yeah, when the reality is you're not going to secure a 3,000-mile border. It's not going to happen.
It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, it doesn't. It's just a foolish approach. So instead, how about this? How about we think about a better way to do it? And I had a really good conversation the other day talking about folks that are struggling with homelessness, right? Colby, we don't hate you. I
don't know you.
I don't hate it.
I would just say, going back to your, I never said anything about a job. I said income from work and income from capital gains, which is a legal definition.
So let's talk about. I know this is like a separate issue, right? But it's important right now, right? Because I can't help but notice this because it's getting colder. So it's getting colder, and I've noticed the increase in this city of folks that are living on the streets, right? And there's this response that you get, and City Manager Batista has said it before. City Manager Augustus before him. I've heard the mayor say this. I've heard a bunch of the city councilors, progressive and otherwise. They will say that these folks are coming from the towns, right? That there's a huge group of this unnamed, folks that are struggling with being unhoused that come from somewhere else. Let me tell you, I drove to Vermont on Saturday. I had a 3-hour drive each way. I was doing a consultation for a church, by the way, for those conservatives that hate me out there. I was doing a church consultation, and it was a great day, wonderful day. But the town I ended up with was Randolph, Vermont. And in Randolph, Vermont, do you know what their biggest crisis is in Randolph, Vermont? Unhoused people. So you would think that like they would have moved to the 2 cities in Vermont, because there's only really 2 big cities in Vermont, right? Brattleboro and Montpelier, and they haven't, because it's in the towns, it's in the cities, it's in the highways, it's in the byways. There is a struggle with poverty in the world, not just in America, in the world. And it's a crisis that has been ongoing for decades. It's just more visible now. And the only thing different that I can tell, historically speaking, is social media. So people take pictures and they post them all the time. And so all of a sudden, folks that were traditionally invisible, right? They lived under a bridge, they lived behind a building, they lived next to a trash can, they lived this place. People are taking pictures, and those people are being spotted in those pictures on a more regular basis. And so now we're aware of a crisis that's been going on for a long, long time. We don't have enough stuff for people to live the same way that we do. We just don't. We don't have enough space. We don't have enough buildings. We don't have enough food, and it's always been a problem, right? And there's some people who respond to it saying, "Oh, it's population control. We got to reduce the population." Well, guess what, guys? There's been poverty for thousands of years, and it has never changed, regardless of the size of population. What does change every once in a while is very, very rare. Is there's like a coalition of the like-minded who get together and say, "Hey, we're going to try to help this group of people." That's it. That's the only thing that seems to be effective. And if you do that, you might have a chance to actually do something in your life. But if you don't do that, you're going to be stuck in this circular argument series where hey, but they said this, hey, but they said that, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I don't, Tom, think that people are stupid. I don't. I think that people just have chosen not to look in a lot of times.
No, I don't even think it's that. I think it's that people are working more hours for less money.
Oh, definitely
They're
that.
busy because they're trying
They are
to
busy.
survive.
Now, wages haven't changed materially since the 1970s, right? Wages have basically stayed the same and flat, while real cost of goods, not inflation rate, but real cost of goods, actual inflation. So that's the amount of your personal income that you spend on necessities has increased. And so it's harder to live. And the number one is not gas, it's not eggs and milk, it's rent. It's rent. It's rent. The cost of housing has increased. Tom did an article a few months ago about the housing crisis in Worcester, and I think that you estimated that rental cost. I think there was one paper that you cited. It was like 10 times over since 1980. So, I mean, 10 times over is no joke. That's no joke. People used to buy houses for $30,000. Now you can't find a house. You can't find a house for $400,000 in the city of Worcester, right? And that wasn't that long ago. That was in our actual lifetimes. That's not a bubble. That's something else. Maybe it's manipulation. I don't know. Tom wrote another article earlier this year talking about market manipulation related to rent. So maybe they're cheating. That's very possible. They definitely are in some ways. But that's a society-wide crisis for the entire world. We're pricing out regular people, working people,
Yep.
and we're sending them to the streets.
And it's really this addiction to this almost religious addiction to the magic of markets. Markets are cool. Markets work in a lot of situations. They don't in everything. They sometimes fail. Take healthcare, for example, where markets fail.
Yeah, healthcare. I mean, there's another one of those ping pong issues that they've gone back and forth of. If you go back to Richard Nixon in the when he was running against Kennedy the first time, he was concerned about healthcare. Imagine that, a Republican, one of the classic evil Republicans of all time, used to care about healthcare costs back then.
Nixon's all this his criminal stuff is one thing, but on policy, he makes. I mean, they'd call him a socialist today.
Oh yeah, no. He some of the stuff that he put. So when people forget some of the stuff that he signed into law,
EPA.
Not just the EPA, but so Lyndon Johnson, most people associate with the Great Society laws, right? But the person who implemented them was Nixon. So because Johnson got those laws through and then left. And people forget he quit. He said, "I will not run. I will not serve." Right? If elected, I will not serve. That whole thought process that he had, and then Nixon implemented all those laws that we consider to be good. That we now think that Trump is ripping apart. Right? So different stuff that was passed by
Johnson. That was after what's his name? His Secretary of State, the foreign guy.
Kissinger.
Yeah, that's after Henry Kissinger committed treason and undermined the negotiations with the North Vietnamese in 1967.
That's a whole.
And never spent a day in jail for it.
We're gonna do This Week in Worcester history show. We're gonna go back in time. I mean, you can trace these things back. I would too. I think that's a great show. I think you can trace these things back and you can look at it. I mean, the healthcare systems that exist now. I mean, the people who have benefited from the healthcare system. Sure, I do agree that existing conditions and allowing kids that were like living with their parents, 26 and under, to stay on the insurance was a good idea. Those are great ideas. But those were ideas that cost a lot of money, and the money went to insurance companies
Yep.
and pharmaceutical companies and massive hospital chains. They didn't go to the people. There was no thing.
If markets always solved everything, there would be no bid contracts from the Pentagon, and it's all no bid contracts.
Right. No, I'm with it, man. And it's just some of the stuff that you see, that just open corruption. They laugh at us. They think that we're dumb, and we're not dumb. Now,
I don't know that it's necessarily like, I don't know it's necessarily corruption, but I mean, it is just, this is what happens when you have two parties that advocate for big business.
So let me qualify that corruption. When I say corruption, I mean something that if you stood back for a minute and you thought about it in terms of ethics, you would say that's probably not right. Like, for example, let's just say an unnamed chief of police in some unnamed town in the Midwest hires his son to be, an officer, right? In a vacuum, that's probably nepotism, right? That's in a vacuum. But he probably really believes, when he hires his son, that he's doing the best thing for the kid, for himself, and for the town. So he's not thinking about it in terms of him doing something, crazy and sneaky. He believes that he's doing the right thing. I call that the true believer syndrome. So corruption is bad, but it's even worse when people think it's not. Right? They think they're doing the right thing, but it's really unethical behavior. And you see how that has kind of permeated almost all of politics. And then it comes out as that thought process, which is, we know better. We know better than you. It's okay that we hired this person. The city of Worcester, hey, here's a great example. Did you think about the fact that the DEI officer, who hopefully Manny and I are going to get a chance to interview, right? That they released the news to the Telegram and Gazette before they released the news to everybody else. They released the diversity officer, who's supposed to be about diversity in the city of Worcester, to the whitest newspaper of all time. That's what they did.
I have no comment on this matter.
That's what our city administration thinks. That was the first public entrance of this guy to local Worcester. It was a favor done to the Telegram and Gazette. And by the way, we have the receipts because Marco published his story before the city released the post.
I have no comment on this matter.
Which, by the way, Marco's a great reporter, but he might have hit send a little too fast on that DEI thing, because he was fed the story. And so, and by the way, that's, if you go back to some of the stuff that the Telegram and Gazette has gotten under embargo, this legacy newspaper here in the city of Worcester, white as white can be, has been given things by, in relation to diversity, which it just shows you they really don't think that, like, they don't even have someone who said, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea.
Okay, John, I should have intervened in this about 20 minutes ago, because we are way off the beaten track. I did want to talk about stuff in Massachusetts. Of course, there was no, municipal elections, but there was state elections for state rep, state senator. Nothing changed. A bunch of races were for stuff that affects Worcester, the city of Worcester. The three senators that touched, three senators were up for election, I think, that touched Worcester. They were reelected, and all of our state reps were reelected. Of course, at the federal level, Congressman McGovern was reelected by a healthy margin. And it doesn't really touch Worcester, but touches kind of the western part of Worcester County. I'm going to forget his name. In Western Mass. But the Democratic rep from Western Mass, whose name is obviously eluding me, he is a very conservative Democrat, but he was also reelected.
Well, I should just look at it for you.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't remember his name. I just looked at it before we started. So, although that's not much of an update, not much happened. Of course, Elizabeth Warren was reelected with like 60%-ish. McGovern won by a huge margin, and State Senator Kennedy was unopposed, so naturally won by a huge margin. In just a small part of the city, Senator Durant was also reelected.
Not Bill Keaton, right?
No.
Richard Neal?
Yeah, it's Richie Neal. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So at the state level, I mean, at least locally, not much changed. There was, I mean, the Republicans I had such a small minority in the House this past session that, that increasing, I don't think is much of a surprise. They're still an extreme minority.
Yeah, they're still extreme minority, but they did make inroads. And then if you go look at the map about towns and stuff, you can see that there's some growth there. And so, I always, yeah, Cornelius Shea. I'll be honest with you. Manny interviewed Cornelius. I thought it was a good interview. I thought he was pretty honest about his chances. He knew he was gonna lose. He didn't. He just felt like, and he wasn't running as a Republican. By the way, he was running as an independent, and he kept referring to himself as a Kennedy Democrat. That's what he referred to himself as a Kennedy Democrat over and over again. And he was talking about service. And he spent a good chunk of time on free lunches for kids. So he was pro free lunches. So good for him.
Yeah. So I mean, there's not much to say about the local stuff really. Everybody kind of stayed in place. Um, and I would just say the point that before you went on whatever tangent we just went on, it was a good tangent, but it was a tangent. I hate to break it to you folks, but a certain senator from Vermont has been saying the same thing for 30 years, and he's exactly right. The Democrats need to represent working people.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's making it up. There was this guy called FDR, and Republicans, that may be listening are rolling their eyes right now. But the fact is, that's when Democrats won because they represented working people.
Yeah, and they appeal to working people. Whether they did it actually in policy, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they made that appeal, and they tried to reach that group of people, and those people believed that appeal was real. So when you believe that you're being spoken to, and we all know this. I mean, so one of the cool things about working with Manny is that I get to see things from a different perspective, right? Manny's a Latino guy, and so I get to see him interacting with public officials from that perspective as a Latino guy, and it's different than mine, obviously, because I'm not Latino, right? That's not that hard to tell. I think it's the most obvious thing about this show is that John is not, and so listening to his perspective, he has said many times he doesn't feel reached out to, right? And so what happens in the city of Worcester when there's nobody who turns out for municipal elections is because why, Tom? They don't feel reached out to.
I mean, that's a whole.
Yeah.
There's so many issues there.
Yeah.
I think at least from it's not real clear often how our government even works. To there's a kind of a singular perspective. I don't want to go down this road right now because we all know my stump speech on this. But I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of reasons. General disengagement, sure, is absolutely a factor, obviously. But I think there's other factors there.
Hey, so I mean, I work as an election inspector at the library site, and we set a record for votes at the library precinct by far. We more than we tripled it, and a little bit more than tripled the voter total in the history of that precinct. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I was telling people, please, I hope I see you next year. I hope I see you in September. I hope you see you for the municipal elections. Because if there's turnout like that for the municipal elections, there'll be a big shift because the amount of people that voted in the city of Worcester for the presidential election, if they had voted in the other down ballot races here at the municipal level, man, you could have seen a lot of differences.
Yeah. And I mean, that conversation is going to start soon. I'm sure people are going to start announcing soon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've already seen some announcements. Who announced? Obviously, Jose Rivera announced his run in District 5, and I think I saw there was a fundraiser for Donna Calorio. So at least two people that I saw. So there's the beginning implications of next year's election already.
Yeah. The hope the superintendent fails caucus of the school committee.
That's
good people they are.
By the way, I'm rooting for the superintendent. I think that she's an eminent professional person and that she's going to continue to, in a dark time, in a place where we think like, things are not going great. I think it'll be great when she shows results, because I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that there won't be immediate concentration camps on January 21st. I'm pretty hopeful that that's not going to happen. But I mean, maybe it will. And if it does, so here's the thing. By the way, all those folks that complain about this, if it does happen, what are you going to do about it? You going to let it happen? I mean, that's what it comes down to. This indication that it's just no one's going to stop this. Everybody's just going to lay down and just you know take the cuffs and go into the van and go, and nobody's going to fight back. Oh, Colleen Colby's going to run. There you go. Get involved. I love that. Love that. Getting more.
Yeah,
more.
into
She's got a big following on Twitter, just so you know. So she might be able to do some stuff.
yeah, into our brothers and sisters of who are black and brown, or are gay or trans or whatever it is that these the worst of these people, because it's not all of them, but the worst of these people like to attack. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
It is going to be okay, because I do think that there are people out there that actually care. And again, I know I challenged challenged someone to a fight. But there are people in the collective sewer of local Worcester politics that I have no problem calling them out on their stuff. So, and again, I may be policy wise close to some of them, maybe, I don't know, but when they do the hatred and they do the invective and they do these terrible, terrible things that they talk about, I'm willing to call them out. I'm willing to call them out 100 billion%. And that's what you have to do. You have to say, you have to do what you say you're going to do. So I guess it's the time for me to step up too, right? But I've already done that. To be honest with you, there's a guy in the local movie industry in Massachusetts that runs a bunch of the bigger groups that's just an absolute horrendous jerk. And I've told him to his face, and and I've called him out online. After the election on Tuesday, he was taking victory laps with memes, all over the internet. And so I'll tell you this: don't work with the dude, right? Don't work with the dude. That's how you get rid of it. Stop. Just don't work with them. You can say, put your hand up, say, "Hey, how's it going?" But move on. Move on to something else. Go to the fellowship of the like-minded. Look for people that care, because there are some that care.
Yeah, and folks that are consider themselves conservative and can have a conversation like an adult. I'm happy to have you on. I have had very cordial conversations with folks that I apt to have vast disagreements with right here on this channel or page or wherever you're watching it. So, as long as you can have a conversation based on, facts, and you want to have a policy conversation, happy to do that. Happy to do that.
It's great. You know what time it is, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know. We did this justice today. The election is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, one of these kind of events where it's hard to really, again, it's hard to analyze it. But I mean, I really think what it is that working class people, maybe that's the best way to say it, made a determination. And it is what it is.
They chose anything but more of the same.
Yeah.
I think that's really the lesson to learn. And so, Democrats should be asking themselves, why are they the more of the same? But they won't. They won't.
By the way, though, Trump. I mean, I guess if you want to look for a little crack in the negative rain, Trump appointed the first ever female chief of staff in Susie Wiles. By the way, to talk about political operative, long time political operative.
Really draining the swamp. How about draining that swamp? 40 years in the Republican Party. Anyway, it is what it is.
Always at the top level too, right? Always at the top level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
But by the way, she is a principled person. She quit Ron DeSantis's campaign over an argument on those planes and buses. So there's one thing about Susie Wiles that if you want to look into her and the things that she's done, do the research yourself. But remember DeSantis started sending the planes up here to Massachusetts,
she was kidnapping people.
Yeah. She resigned over that policy, and so and then went to Trump's side, which is hilarious. Which is funny. But anyway,
I mean, if that's the case, she's not going to make it through February.
Right. Well, that's the thing too. I know everybody's worried about the cabinet. That Elon. You guys think Elon Musk is going to last 4 years? Come on, guys. Come on. There's no way he lasts. They're buddy right now, but it'll be done in a little while. It is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
all these people that are screaming about, the takers of society, people who are just given stuff. Yeah, nobody's been given more money from the federal government than Elon Musk. Just
yeah,
a fact.
get big loans, man. Big loans that got billions of dollars you got from the feds. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So our feature segment of the show. What
The
do you
best
got?
Okay, so tomorrow, super exciting, super exciting. Tomorrow, Leanne and I, Hollywood Film Group and Lean Into Productions, we are going to be um launching our first ever film that we've going to have regional distribution. We're super excited about it. It's a Christmas movie. I can't release it. Tom, this week in Worcester is going to have exclusive access to the trailer, and we'll see that tomorrow on Veterans Day. The name of the movie, I can tell you the name, is A Soldier for Christmas. All right, so then we're super excited about that. So it made me think it's about that time, Tom.
Yep, I'm listening.
What is your favorite Christmas movie? Go. Everybody else,
God.
check it in the chat. Let's get it. Favorite Christmas movies. Kick them in there.
Oh God. I mean,
It's tough. It's tough.
is there like a horror movie where everyone dies, including Santa? Like, I can't tell you how much I loathe Christmas, the holiday season.
Guy, there's a bunch of horror Christmas movies.
I mean, I'll go with the old Chevy Chase and whatnot there. What's that? I can't think of the name of it. Christmas Vacation.
Way, yeah, Christmas Vacation. So which one?
The old school one, the first one. Well, the first one's Vacation, and then it's Christmas Vacation, right?
Right. So Christmas Vacation when they stay home, right? Okay, all right, cool. So not vacation. All right, cool. Couple things. Let me go immediately into the controversy. Haunted Halloween movie with capital H-O. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna dive right in there. Die Hard is a Christmas movie, just so everybody knows. So
there is Die Hard.
If you don't believe Die Hard's a Christmas movie, you have something wrong with you. Gremlins is a Christmas movie by far. It is one.
Those are like about stuff that happens during Christmas.
Yeah, but they're Christmas movies. I'll
roll with it. I'll roll with it.
Right, but anyways, my favorite. I guess I would say my favorite. It's tough. It's really hard, but Christmas Vacation is a good one. I actually like. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Prancer. It's with the.
How about I auditioned for that movie.
Really? To be the kid?
Yeah. Not the girl. Like the kid, her friend on the bus there.
Yeah.
The kid that was always giving her a hard time. She was lying and stuff. I was supposed to be that dude.
Oh, man, you would have been a child star.
Well, actually, I wasn't supposed to be that dude. I read for it, and they were like, yeah, you suck.
That's pretty cool. I like that. So I always like that movie. That it like tugs on your heart a little bit. Colby's like, oh my God. So I like that. And then, I do consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie. So I like that one as well. And then, I guess if I were going to pick any of the like Hallmarky Christmas movies, it would be Christmas on Ice. And that's because I was in that movie. So I am an extra in that movie. And they had no budget. So I ended up being in a lot of scenes. And I'm wearing the same jacket, and I'm just like walking around behind people. So, I guess it would be that one of all the Christmas movies. But after tomorrow, A Soldier for Christmas gets launched. It will be at the Showcase Cinemas in Millbury Blackstone Plaza there, and you'll get 3 days right now, 6th, 7th, and 8th December. But Tom's gonna have all that in an exclusive article tomorrow.
Sweet. And Colby, it's all love. Don't just because I get irritated. I mean, I am persistently irritated, so don't even worry about that. It's all love.
Because he has hemorrhoids. Just so you know, that's why he's got hemorrhoids. Now he's aggravated with me. Look at his face.
No, I almost said something that I'm not allowed to say.
Look at his face.
I almost said something that would not be good. It's not for broadcast.
I don't know where it is on the screen. If he's this way or that, I don't know where he is, depending on where you are. Wherever his face is.
I was gonna say something that has to do with your tongue, and then it was going to get really dirty, and we don't do that here.
Yeah, that's true. We don't. I take back the hemorrhoids thing. I do. I take back the hemorrhoids thing for sure.
No, but yeah. So it's because I said out you were irritating me. That's just because it's a day that ends in Y. It's all love. Thank you for joining us.
By the way, with This Week in Worcester, it's my job to do this. This Week in Worcester podcast is always looking for local sponsors as we continue to grow. There's multiple opportunities for you to do it, whether it's website or articles, yada, 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 and the podcast itself. And then, of course, the exclusive entertainment, article of Massachusetts and New England related to New England film, Hollywood news. Look for new articles coming soon.
Awesome. That is all for this week. We will try to screw it up less next week. We do have City Council coming back into session this week, and so we'll talk about some of that.
Isn't your items under suspension going to be taken up then?
Yes.
How did you skate this whole episode without us talking about that? Dang it.
Oh, no, I'm going to be very well behaved.
You were rude today, Tom Marino.
I am not bringing fire and brimstone. So if you're tuning in to see me freak out, this will not be a freak out situation.
By the way, I did notice that there's a lot of public records requests being fulfilled the last couple of weeks. I wonder why that happened.
Attorney Thompson, who I typically deal with in the law department related to records, is a wonderful human being and does her very best to try and help me, and I appreciate her very much.
We love Janine. Is it Janine?
Janice.
Jess. Sorry.
Janice.
Jess Thompson. We are pro her.
And I mean that. That may sound like whatever. No, it's true. I love her. She's great. The departments are overwhelmed, and things aren't happening as they should. It's not because of lack of effort. It seems to me to be lack of resources. So it'll be a very simple ask. Can we fix this, please?
Maybe we can get someone to sponsor the law department.
All right. That is all for this week. We will try and screw it up less.